Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to join you today and to join Napier University at Beyond COP26. It's my pleasure to be able to demonstrate the Scottish Government's continued commitment to net zero and to highlight some of the work that we are undertaking to support the development of smart cities. COP26 truly is an unparalleled opportunity to demonstrate and to further accelerate the world-leading climate action that we're taking in Scotland and that the world needs to take. We have already what is regarded as the world's most ambitious legislative framework for emissions reductions, and we're determined to make a just transition to net zero by 2045. It is an epic task, it will be a truly national endeavour, and we can leave no one behind as we do it. The scale and importance of COP26 presents real opportunities for engaging the Scottish public on climate change, ensuring a positive legacy for future generations. We hope to increase connections and partnerships for people and communities in Scotland and with our international friends and neighbours. The Scottish Government's refreshed digital strategy and our new programme for government demonstrate our commitment to incorporating green thinking into all of our digital solutions so that we can contribute to meeting our statutory commitments to be net zero by 2045. While Scotland's journey to net zero is challenging and complex, it can be and will be made easier through the use of digital technologies. Research shows that it's today's society who are feeling the first impacts of climate change. And we will equally be the first to experience rapid digital transformation. We also know that digital is a substantial contributor to climate change, currently making up an estimated 4% of the worldwide carbon footprint. This is expected to increase and must be worked upon. However, without digital and data, efforts to deliver on climate change and net zero targets could fall short. There is an important and leading role for collaboration between government and the digital sector to accelerate the demand for renewable energy and to provide actionable solutions to climate change problems. Digital solutions to climate change need to be designed with people in mind and must be woven into the continued economic recovery from the pandemic and indeed from EU exit. Data and technology are the key enablers for delivering the Smart City approach. The Smart Cities programme is coordinated through the Scottish Cities Alliance, a partnership between the Scottish Government and Scotland's 7 cities to integrate digital technologies and data into public and civic service delivery, supporting the key goals of enhancing sustainability, citizen well-being and economic development. The strategic outcomes for the programme are to use data and technology to improve sustainability, resilience and efficiency, to integrate service delivery and promote community engagement, to address urban challenges related to air quality, energy use, transport, street lighting, safety and waste, and to develop new platforms for data-driven solutions. The Scottish Cities Alliance is supported by the Scottish Government's 7 Million Cities Investment Fund, which is accelerating the pace of investment by supporting collaborative programmes between the 7 cities and their regions to develop large-scale projects. Scotland's 8th city, the Smart City, is the first such intervention, developed by the 7 cities through the Scottish Cities Alliance. The programme has received £24 million of European Regional Development funding and is focused on the theme of digital and data technology and seeks to enhance smart city activity by using data and digital to accelerate and transform the delivery of city services. Central to that programme is the Data Cluster, a programme where all cities are engaged on or are active observers of at looking and creating open standards, platforms and improving analytics, building capacity to allow better use and sharing of open data across the cities. This is in line, of course, with our commitment to make more of our data open, improving transparency and accountability, digital inclusion, open government and creating economic opportunity. We will ensure that digital technologies improves access to data about local needs and assets to allow people to make informed decisions in their communities. The current phase of the programme will run until December 2022, during which the Scottish Government will continue to act as the managing authority. Of course, such programmes are only possible if Scotland is equipped with effective underlying and, of course, reliable digital infrastructure. This is a key economic enabler and a critical part of our plans for a green and resilient economy. The new digital strategy makes it clear that digital connectivity is a key part of our critical national infrastructure. Fibre connectivity is essential, not just to provide the fastest possible broadband speeds to individual premises and to support 4G and 5G networks, but also to enable the movement of data within Scotland and to the rest of the world. This is why we are investing in future-proofed infrastructure, including £5.3 million for the establishment of the Scotland 5G Centre, an additional £4 million of investment for the S5G Connect programme to deliver a national network of 5G innovation hubs. The 5G Centre is currently taking forward 3 Wave 1 projects, including the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District, a world-class innovation district established by the University of Glasgow that will push Glasgow into the top rank of global innovative cities. A 5G-enabled smart campus is being established as an urban laboratory for 5G innovation. Tangible outcomes will include the design and build of a unique self-organising network in an urban environment, including local network and an Internet of Things platform. We are also developing a widespread sensor network across Scotland, focused on public sector infrastructure through the Iot Scotland Project, a partnership between Scottish Government and commercial delivery partners North. The project is sought to ensure the IoT network coverage is achieved across urban and rural areas to support the adoption, which is a key enabler of the Smart Cities proposition. I hope that the programme events you are participating in as part of Beyond COP26 will inspire you to embrace the challenges and indeed the many opportunities we are facing as we work towards becoming net zero in our society and our economy by 2045. It really is incumbent upon every one of us to work together to transform industries, to change the course of climate change and to lay the foundations for a positive, safe and responsible digital future. Our people, our places, our economy and indeed our planet require it. I hope you have an excellent day and thank you very much again for the opportunity to speak with you.
Good afternoon to everyone. So we couldn't have asked for a better introduction on the role that smart city transitions play in urban sustainability dynamics. It is, in fact, as Myri was saying, a role that goes beyond COP26 and the climate change discourse, beyond emission reduction, beyond energy efficiency improvement, and the enhancement of urban systems resilience. As you will see, these are points that we will touch during our conversation with our guest. Smart city solutions can help boost sustainability in a more comprehensive manner. Tackling socioeconomic challenges as well as environmental degradation. And they can benefit any sector because we can talk about water, we can talk about healthcare, education, mobility, waste management, and many more sectors. During this session, what we will try to do, we will introduce smart city transitions and the challenges that cities are facing when dealing with these complex transformation processes. Which are indispensable to ensure that information and communication technologies for addressing urban development issues are correctly embedded in the built environment. This is a task that many cities across the world are trying to achieve, but it's not an easy one. But before moving forward, I would like to introduce and thank our panel members. So together with me today, we have a group of sustainability experts in some ways. different ways because they have really complementary knowledge backgrounds. And this is why I'm sure that you will hear a truly inspiring and insightful conversation. So we have Dr. Brian Davison, lecturer at Edinburgh Napier University, specialized in computer science. Then we have Liz McCrivey, Chief Executive at Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce. And then we have Stuart Gordon from Anderson Strathern. So during the next 15 minutes, as a starter, I would like to give you a short presentation. The objective is to give you a brief overview of what smart city transitions are, both in theory and practice, and some key strategic principles that should be considered in order to ensure that smart city transitions are truly sustainable. These principles result from mainly research that we conducted at Edinburgh Napier University. And the contents of this presentation will set the scene for our subsequent panel discussion, where we will be looking into a set of objectives that are crucial to move beyond COP26 and accelerate smart city transitions worldwide. These objectives are linked to policy recommendations that our Urban Innovation Group at Edinburgh Napier University has recently included in a report commissioned by the United Nations Secretariat. We'll be presenting the report to UN state members in November. And if you are interested in reading the report, it will be made available a few weeks after the event. So I would like to start by looking at the smart city concept because we might have very different definitions across the audience. So smart cities are urban environments that are accelerating sustainability transitions by assembling and continuously expanding a platform, which is exactly what Mary was saying, of digital solutions to urban sustainability challenges. These digital solutions include computing technologies for addressing socioeconomic and environmental problems that undermine urban development practices. And smart city transitions are mainly about connecting virtual and physical spaces by means of digital technology. And the result is an ICT augmented urban environment where digital technology becomes a tool for boosting sustainability, which is the expected outcome. Helping cities across the world to adopt a smart city approach to urban development is one of the main commitments of the United Nations, and this commitment is made explicit in the new urban agenda. Available smart city technologies are many. There are many different solutions that cities can apply, but the key question, which has not been answered yet, is or at least not completely, is how do we build platforms of integrated smart city solutions in a sustainable manner? So to embrace the benefit that smart city transitions can generate, cities are required to design and implement a process of change, which is a transition. And this transition needs to ensure that smart city technologies are correctly integrated in the urban environment and that they produce the value that we're looking for and improve sustainability. The reason why we do not have a comprehensive understanding of how sustainable smart city transitions unfold is because there are different development paths and approaches which overlap. And this is creating a confusing scenario, especially for practitioners and decision makers. And this explains why we need cross-sector discussion like the one that we are having today. To have more clarity, our Urban Innovation Group started looking into the unfolding of smart city transitions by analyzing different cities across the world. And we found some relevant lessons that we translated in a set of strategic principles. And here are some of the most important ones. So first of all, enabling smart city development is a challenge that goes far beyond technology. So we saw that smart city transitions result from the continuous implementation of short and medium-term digital interventions that gradually, progressively transform cities into smart environments. And this transformation resembles the urban acupuncture idea. However, to let this progressive transformation take place, significant efforts must be oriented towards building the capacity of the city and its users to integrate and deploy these new technological solutions. These require city to align technological development with the content of a holistic and comprehensive strategic framework, which is required to provide long-term sustainability and drive individuals and organizations in the same direction. So it's about orchestration. And cities also need to build an open, inclusive, and engaging collaborative environment that strengthens the capability of these individuals and organizations to work together and actively participate in the co-creation of digital initiatives that can bring innovation and improvements into the city. I personally consider the collaborative environment and the strategic framework has hidden factors in the global smart city discourse because most of the interest seems to be related to technological solutions and network infrastructure, which are the most visible factors. In developing this open, inclusive, and engaging collaborative environment, we also saw that it's extremely important to rely on public and private sector collaboration. That's a must. But it's also necessary to ensure that there is a strong connection between industry, government, and research. And in addition to that, we saw that most successful cities are also making significant efforts to strengthen the participatory qualities of civil society, because smart city transitions must be people-centered. Smart city transitions require strong collaborative environments, so in which we have heterogeneous actors representing different institutional contexts, and together they create an innovation process where values, expectations, and knowledge are shared for the benefit of all the participants. And the leadership and political support of the local government are indispensable but not sufficient because a solely top-down approach does not lead to sustainable smart city transitions. Local governments need to ensure that their leadership is there to stimulate bottom-up innovation by ensuring that creativity, experimentation, and the element of play, for example, are incorporated into the smart city transition strategy. For example, in the cases that we analyzed, frequently we have citizen engagement and collaboration that have been stimulated through the organization of competitions, challenges, hackathons, which have been backed by robust open data policies that are encouraging the informed reuse of public data sets that the city government can share through open data portals. City governments are also required to outline the citywide strategic framework for smart city development. And this is a set of policy documents that need to clearly establish a long-term vision that highlights ambitions and motivations. Then it's necessary to have expected outcomes and targets, specific, measurable, on how basically ICT can help to reach specific sustainable development goals. The main application domains should also be quite clear, and especially in relation to the communication with the public and other stakeholders. And then it's necessary to have a working group that is going to be responsible for managing and accelerating the implementation of the strategy. Now, we call this working group Smart City Accelerator. It's a core component of these strategies, especially from the governance point of view. And in the case in which we analyze, we talk about a team that is tasked with accelerating the progressive transformation of the city in a smart environment by strengthening the capacity of individuals and organizations to collaborate in delivering innovative ICT-related initiatives. Now, smart city accelerators can be part of either the city government or other existing organizations that carry out community tasks, as in the case of Barcelona, for example. But they can also be created by establishing new public-private organizations which are autonomous and provided with independent legal identity, as in the case of Amsterdam, for example. Another interesting example that we saw, it is quite comprehensive, is the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications of New York City. Depending on the situations, we saw that this department is quite flexible and can act as a service provider, an advisor, or a broker. And it also offers structured oversight for the diverse portfolio of technology projects serving the city. Additionally, we saw that this department ensures that smart city development is approached collectively. So it's not just about cross-sector collaboration, it's also about cutting across different sectors and divisions of the city government, because it is important to adopt an integrated intervention logic. Smart city development pathways, as far as we saw, need to be shaped according to each city's socioeconomic and cultural background. Obviously, every city has different needs, but the selection of the application domains depends strictly on local context factors. Therefore, it is important to adopt an integrated intervention logic that cuts across all application domains that smart city development represents, which are many. It's not just about energy, and extends the benefits that ICT solutions can offer to any policy sector. Now, building on what we have seen, I would like to invite our guests to share their views and opinions on some key objectives whose achievement is truly critical to accelerate smart city transitions worldwide. So the first question relates to the innovation momentum. So we have seen over the years that many municipal administrations experience difficulties when attempting to launch and implement large-scale digital transformation processes. But the COVID-19 pandemic, despite the damage, has accelerated smart city transitions in many foundational sectors. There are examples, quite significant examples, obviously in the education system. We saw what happened with the healthcare system. And it has triggered a level of research, development, and experimentation that many cities have struggled to implement during non-crisis conditions. Now, we need smart city transitions, and the world is lagging behind on many sustainable development targets. Therefore, the question in this case is, how can we size the smart city momentum induced by the COVID-19 crisis? And how can we use this transformative power to ensure that urban areas can deliver on their sustainable development commitments? And what measures can we use in order to support this momentum? I would like to introduce Brian first, if you want to give us a brief idea of your thinking around this topic.
Thanks very much, Luca. Yeah, I'm maybe not the best person to start with. I would rather have started with someone from the Edinburgh City Council, to be honest. But since we don't have that person on the panel, I will stand in. I'm here basically because my expertise is in technology, and I could spend a long time blinding people with science about the types of technology that could be used, the types of networking that could be flooded through the city, to use to monitor the delivery of services, to guide traffic, and allow e-democracy to flourish in Edinburgh. That's all fine. But the technology itself basically already exists. There's not a great deal to do apart from combine it in interesting ways. And as your work shows, that's already being done in a lot of other places. So I think that some of the barriers to transition towards a smart city come from some of the inertias built into the system. And some of those are from the sort of traditional way that city governments and local governments generally operate. They have a certain type of remit to deliver a certain type of service and to monitor and maintain the infrastructure that everyone uses. In the past, that has all been something that can be done in-house. What we're seeing now, I think, is that there's a lot more demand from outside the local governments themselves for some greater degree of openness. So some of the things that you mentioned, so for example, the idea of a smart city accelerator, that would be a fantastic addition to somewhere like Edinburgh, where there is essentially quite a conservative approach to town planning. Traditionally, I think that is changing just at the moment. And also, to take up another of the points that you made in the slides, this idea of urban acupuncture, I think, is something that could be embraced really quite widely. There's you can go onto the Edinburgh website, for example, Edinburgh City Council website, and you can get a list of little areas of derelict land around the city, which are simply sitting there waiting for some great idea to come along. And it would be fantastic to use that sort of resource that's at the council's fingertips to do some experiments with local interventions and to look at small things that can be done, and those that work could maybe be scaled up. So I think one of the other inertias in the system is potentially a fear of failure. There's quite a lot of sort of implied understanding in the way people talk about things like smart city platforms, that it has to be some great perfect solution that's rolled out across the whole city. And I think there are some very big problems with that we can perhaps go into a little bit later on. Much more positive is the idea of things like enabling local people to do little experiments locally in their area, and to live with the idea that some of those may not be successful, but to learn from them and to move on. And that would be a much more dynamic way for cities to approach the management of their area and the portfolio of services that they're designed to deliver.
Thank you very much, Brian. I totally agree on the legacy aspect. It's a big challenge for many cities. Replacing legacy systems with new technology is not easy, because it comes with the burden of not only of the cost and the technology in itself, but also the preparation of a new environment that has to work with the technology. Thank you so much for your comments. Liz, do you mind if I invite you to join in?
No, thank you very much, Luca, and thanks very much for the presentation. Really, really interesting. And Brian, I totally agree with you. I'm not the technology expert here, and I think that I've got every faith that the technology is there and will be developed. And I think we've seen over the past decade that technology has given us the chance to revolutionise urban environments and turn cities into great places to live. And I think that's what we really need to focus on. And the key objective is that, cities are changing. Cities are very different. And we've seen that the way they've all been impacted during the pandemic. Whole range of different resilience across the UK, and Edinburgh, as it turned out, was according to PwC's Good Growth report, Edinburgh was the #1 most resilient city in the UK, largely because of its broad sectoral strength. So we're all different, and I think placemaking has been an increasingly important lever in developing our cities as places that are more focused on citizens, their happiness, health and well-being. So I think in terms of that smart city development, we've got to be really clear what our purpose is, and that has to be about making people's lives better, about supporting and protecting the planet, but also about supporting and enabling the economy. So I think if we're clear about what we want from our smart cities, and they have to be sustainable smart cities, then we have to look at the policies that are developed to enable that. I think we've got some really good examples in Edinburgh. It would have been good to have somebody from the City Council here, and whilst I wouldn't like to speak on behalf of them, I've been working very closely on consultation on quite a number of the initiatives. So I'm sure I can sort of bring some of that into the conversation. But we've got Central Edinburgh Transformation Project. This is part of the City Plan 2030 and the mobility strategy. So addressing how do we make the city centre more citizen-centric? How do we encourage active travel, that walking, cycling, public transport, and look at the emissions and the sustainability agenda around transportation. We know what smart city infrastructure can do. We know it's about managing the flow of people and energy and transport and all that real-time data that we can capture as a result of that. What's that telling us, and how do we make better modelling decisions? I think again, we've got to be looking at how does it improve the life of citizens. I think a notable feature of the pandemic is that it's condensed decades of social change into a matter of months. And how we work, how we communicate, how we engage with each other has changed. And I think cities are changing. We've noticed, the footfall in the city centre has significantly dropped during the pandemic. It's recovering, but I've got concerns with, remote working. How many people are actually going to come back into the offices and work? We're dealing with online retail. How is that impacting city centres? We've got the development of 20-minute neighbourhoods as part of that sustainability agenda. So all these come into the mix that we have to really rethink the role of our cities and reimagine in many ways that experiential, animated city centre that is actually our identity and attracts investment, talent and businesses to locate here. So I think there's some complex issues. At the centre of it, though, I think if we're going to be successful with smart cities, it's all about the leadership. There has to be strong leadership. There has to be a clear vision for the city. And I think we're all aware that communication, when things go wrong, it tends to be because communication hasn't been very strong. So how do we improve communication across all the stakeholders in the city? But I think probably one of the most important things as well is how do we develop an effective collaborative model? We talk about public-private collaboration. If I'm really honest, I don't think that's working well in Edinburgh at the moment. I think we've got very good sectoral ecosystems, but they tend to be a bit fragmented. And I think it's up to individual organisations and sectors and the relationships that individuals have in reaching out and making those connections and pulling those ecosystems together in a network of networks is something that we really need to lean into and figure out. I think the English cities like Manchester and Liverpool have got their act together a lot better. They're a lot more joined up in creating these comprehensive packages. So I think that's something that we really need to look at. But we've got a framework. The city has developed a really, really good sustainability strategy, all 73 pages. It outlines where the emissions are coming from, what we need to do, how we go about doing it. The big issue is how many people on this conference know about it? Have they read it? Do they know what their role is? How do we collectively come together? Because no one organisation or business can deliver it. The city council can't deliver it. Collectively, we have to come together. So I think the main thing for me is collaboration.
Thank you, Liz, very much for touching the collaboration point, but also for introducing the unaccounted aspects that smart city transitions can generate, because obviously the technology can have also negative effects if it's not managed properly. So that's another very good point that should be considered quite clearly within the strategies. Stuart, is there something that you would like to add to this point?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Luca. I think what I'd like to say is that, touching on the technology point, is that we have the technology in place to deliver smart cities. However, I think it's about how people work together and how we use the technology and the data generated from that to deliver smart cities. The other thing as well is that smart cities is part of the net zero goal. So I think one of the biggest issues with net zero in cities is transport and also heat. I actually come from more of a kind of energy background, so that's the reason that I'm sort of banging the energy drum here. For example, I think we need greater electrification of transport. For example, electric vehicles, more electric vehicle charge points, electric buses. But obviously there are major challenges there because the grid, for example, it needs to be upgraded severely, and that's going to come at a massive cost. There's also the issue about people nervous about moving to electric vehicles because of, the cost of them or the range, or range anxiety, which is basically where the electric vehicle runs out of charge. So I think, to mitigate that, we can have sort of localized energy generation, microgrids, which will hopefully transform the urban energy into being more flexible and resilient and sustainable. And to touch on the heat point, I think we need to move away from fossil fuels, but there's a big issue because obviously natural gas is very much, being utilised to heat, homes and businesses at the moment. So there has been regulation on that recently. That was the Heat Network Scotland Act. But it's effectively there's further regulation required to implement the changes. What I would also say is touching on Liz's point about about working. I think that hybrid working has to be encouraged, even if people are back in the office. When things return to normality, because obviously this reduces traffic, reduces people coming into the city, and also therefore reduces carbon emissions. Now, I appreciate that some industries require people to be physically present in their office, but I think the pandemic has shown that a lot of people can work effectively from home. But obviously there's a balance to be struck between employers on that, and I think as well, we need to install the best broadband infrastructure everywhere, whether you're in a city, whether you're in a sort of rural area, because that has become the most important thing for businesses. Because how many times have we been on calls with colleagues and their internet has went down and we can't reach them? So I think that's very important. But to also touch on Liz's point about what the rest of the UK are doing, I think there's other examples. For example, Sunderland, Leeds, Birmingham, Peterborough. Where they've started implementing smart city regimes. So I think we need to take inspiration from other regions and cities because, ultimately that will lead to quicker solutions.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Other good point, obviously, lesson learned, exchange of ideas, creating platforms and exchange knowledge across cities. Another very good point, because in fact, because cities are really struggling to understand what to do in most of the cases, learning from those who are already pioneers, or at least that they're running together, probably it's a very good point. Moving to the next point, I would like to build on what basically Liz was saying around the collaborative environment. So we saw that when we talk about smart cities, these transitions stem from physical assets, but also from sound legal and institutional frameworks. So it's not just about technology. And we saw that in order to develop, test, and scale smart city solutions, we do need a cross-sector and multi-stakeholder effort with strong collaboration among heterogeneous actors and even across scales, because it's not just about the city, it's about the city, the regional government, the national government, and even beyond if we want to. The problem in this case is that in this collaborative process, we also have citizens. So we also have challenges around, for example, public engagement. So it's a very complex dynamic. And I would like to know, based on your experience, what are the most critical factors that influence the capability of local actors to create cross-sector and multi-stakeholder collaborative ecosystems? So what can we do in order to create this ecosystem that many cities struggle to develop? Brian, do you want to start?
With that? Do you want me
Oh,
to come
yes,
in, Luca?
please,
I'm happy
Liz.
to kind of
Sure.
chat about that. Um, I think we've got to become a lot more joined up. There's as I said earlier, I think there's a lot of really good ecosystems working well across the city, but it's quite fragmented. As a Chamber of Commerce, I'm really lucky that I tend to sit on quite a lot of these things. So we have the Edinburgh Development Forum, we've got the tourism strategy, we've got the economic advisory panel, we've got the sustainability council. You know, there are so many of these, and then we've got fantastic ecosystems across fintech and financial services and tech and bioscience, and these work very well, but they are very, very fragmented, and at the moment there isn't as I think I tried to call it, a network of networks that pulls us together. Interestingly, we're working in partnership with City of Edinburgh Council on Edinburgh's COP26 activity. And that's been really interesting because